Hello, everyone. Dr. Eames here. This time I'd like to talk to you about appearance discrimination. There are many forms of this. Let's just start with Heightism. Um, our author really does concentrate a lot on the chapter uh, on obesity, but the chapter is titled Working with People of All Sizes and Shapes. So I've given some additional information here for you of some of the other isms, the types of discrimination that are related to appearance. So, um, heightism is really just a form of discrimination based on height, and it is basically discrimination against short people. And it does take place in a variety of areas of life, including politics, business, sports, dating, among many others. Um, it's associated with gender roles in our society, and our society simply favors the tall over the short, just like they do the thin over the fat. For instance, the average fashion model in the United States, female, 5'11", 117 pounds, while the average American woman is 5'4", and she's 140 pounds. The average male is 5 foot 9 inches. Um, and the pressure is out there in our society, uh, and sometimes it does affect certain groups of parents. In fact, the pressure from some parents, short parents often, of short children, was that in 2003, the FDA approved the use of the human growth hormone, HGH, to be used, medically prescribed, of course, in an attempt to make these children taller. And it actually works a little bit. It costs about $20,000 a year. Um, that's about 8 or 10 years old, that figure, so it could be a little bit more. Um, but the whole routine itself is really unpleasant for the child, for one thing. 6 injections a week for 5 to 10 years, and they might get a 1 to 1.5 inch increase in height. Um, Let me give you some short and tall facts from politics. 80% of taller presidential candidates have won the presidential elections. Only two presidents were shorter than the country's average height, which is deemed to be short for men, is today 5'3". Um, some short and tall facts from business. One recent study of newly minted MBAs who were 6 foot 2 inches above received starting salaries that were 12.5% higher than graduates from the same school with the same degrees who were less than 6 feet tall. And this was even when the shorter applicant had higher intelligence. A recent 2003 study, University of Florida and the University of North Carolina, a combination, found that short people were paid less than their taller peers. And you can assign a dollar amount to it. There's enough research out there to substantiate this. Each inch in height amounted to about $789 per year in pay, more pay for taller persons. So the difference, it seems small, but over time, this is hundreds of thousands of dollars in a working person's career. Some short and tall facts from dating. Most women prefer tall men over short men. Uh, Adult men often say that shorter girls won't even date them because of their height when they're short. In sports, the popular notion is bigger is better. The problem with this is it also puts pressure on taller men as well as shorter. Taller men, because of heightism, are under a lot of pressure to perform, to succeed, to be above average. So it does work slightly both ways, this notion of heightism. It motivates some to abuse steroids and other HGH drugs. And there are all sorts of issues affecting short people. Sometimes they have trouble finding adult clothes and hats that fit them. In school, they can be bullied because of their stature. But particularly in the workplace, we have research that says sometimes they're just not taken seriously in the workplace situation simply because they're short. Um, They're generally chosen second over taller people if there's a leadership position available. And many people consider shorter people not as smart as tall people. Um, let's take a look here at lookism. This is appearance discrimination based on how beautiful you are or how ugly you might be as perceived by other people. Um, and there isn't much support for you out there if you fall into one or the other categories. If you're particularly homely, there's no lobby for the homely. And how do you pin down discrimination against people who would be hurt to admit that they're even in the stigmatized category? And ugly people aren't united like other lobbies of people who are on the end of a lot of discrimination. Um, now, not all employers are this shallow, but it's no secret that we are a culture in America obsessed by image. And there are some real facts from research to back this up when it comes to careers and so forth and the amount of money you can make. Handsome men earn 5% more than their counterparts. Beautiful women earn about 4% more than their counterparts, average people. The good-looking man can earn about $250,000 more than his less attractive coworker over the course of his career. That's $250,000. A recent study by Newsweek showed that 57% of hiring managers, that's well over half, they have a preference for attractive persons over qualified, unattractive job seekers. So even some human resource managers will admit that they have the preference for the taller, the better looking, and so forth. And this is lookism. Pretty people get more attention from their boss, from their mentors, from their coworkers, from their teachers. Even babies stare at good-looking people longer than others. And we all stare at good-looking babies longer, even though we would never tell anybody that their baby was hideous, of course. And weight discrimination is just as bad, another ism. Worse for heavy women than it is for heavy men, by far. We have research from the Vanderbilt Law School that concluded there's no doubt that fat women earn less than their peers who are not fat across pretty much all industries and all types of work. It holds true even across educational lines. The stereotype is that fat women are less educated and they're poor, or they're likely to be poor. And if you looked at fatness to thinness on a continuum of, say, very thin, thin, average, heavy, very heavy, it's found that the very thin woman would earn $22,000 per year, and heavy women would earn nearly $19,000 less in a lot of given industries. So the issue is not just about fat women, but about women in general. And we know there's already a wage gap. And so when it comes to things like lookism and heightism and weight discrimination, it's worse for women. An annual weight gain of 25 pounds, for instance, could cost a woman $14,000 a year in salary. The promotions will not be as big. The amounts will be certainly less. Research shows that as little as 13 pounds overweight could result in being paid $9,000 a year less. Certainly, starting pay would be somewhat less from someone who was average weight. Let's talk a little bit about labels. We have to be careful with labels we use. It's easy to offend people. There are legal and medical labels that pertain to our weight. Overweight, obese, severely obese. Those are accepted terms, legal and medical terms. Whether or not you should say someone is fat, the research is out on that. We just don't know. Some people get offended if they're called fat. Others embrace it and say, I'm fat. It doesn't seem to matter to them. It's just a word. But labels do matter. Overweight and obesity are both labels for ranges of weight that are greater than what's generally considered healthy for a given height. And that's generally the way we look at being overweight. How does your weight match up to your height? The terms overweight and obesity also identify ranges of weight that have been shown to increase the likelihood of certain diseases and how well you hold up over time, whether or not you have a lot of other health problems and so forth. Um, but also behavior, environment, genetic factors of all types affect whether a person is overweight or obese. It's not a choice. Um, Fat versus overweight, well, and when it comes to those terms, we really don't have a consensus. There's always someone that is offended by either or both of those terms. Now, when we look at the health effects of being obese, they're serious. If you're 10 to 30% overweight, you have increased mortality, particularly if you're a person at risk for diabetes, which seems to be the big factor in all sorts of disabilities and health effects, diabetes. Um, if you're 30 to 100% overweight, then you have greatly increased mortality, overall health damage. If you fell into the severe morbid obesity range, then you're probably 100% overweight and you're in danger of premature death. In other words, you could certainly just drop dead. Let's talk about one final topic here related to all of this, body mass index, BMI. Now, I don't have the exact formula for you here to calculate. That's not really important. What it is, though, body mass index is an indication that tells us, in general, what is the amount of body fat that we have. And to calculate and get that number, you use weight and height. We do know a few things, like the one chart here tells us. Obesity rates for adults with disabilities, 58% higher than people that don't have disabilities. So a disability has something to do with it. If you look here at the chart itself, adults with disabilities and adults without, you can see the percentages of obesity there, and they're considerably different. Okay, folks, that's all I wanted to talk about this time. I'll talk to you again soon.